Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Rollout Show. This is episode 4, and I am your host, Weston Riddle, and my co-host needs no introduction because he always screws up the introduction, so we might as well just move on.
Wow. I was really looking forward to ruining your bit, and you ruined it for me.
Exactly.
Thanks.
I'm a pre-ruiner, and I knew you were probably just waiting to just ruin everything, so I'm like, you know what? No. I'm just going to walk all over it.
But you know what? That was better than the other 4 times combined, or 3 times, or however many times we've done this.
Does that mean we're getting better?
No,
Okay.
we're getting much worse.
Yeah, we're actually probably pretty terrible. But anyway, we thank you all who are listening, and thank you for not turning us off already. So this is
Click.
oh, yep. I'm looking at the ratings. It says we actually have to give up the show forever because we're so terrible. All right, cool.
That's fair.
Yeah, probably deserve that one. Do you think we could get into the podcast Hall of Fame?
Is there a podcast Hall of Fame yet? I don't think there is.
If not, we should start one.
And we're the first entrants.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey, you know.
It'll be. Let's do us. We'll throw Star Talk Radio in there. We'll throw
Channing Frye podcast.
The Channing Frye podcast, where Kyrie Irving talks about the world being flat.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Bill Simmons seems like a cool guy. He can come.
We could do the Where is Richard Simmons podcast. Speaking of Simmons. Yeah, that's pretty popular right now.
Is it?
Yeah, because nobody knows where Richard Simmons is.
I have no idea.
Exactly, nobody knows. You only hear stuff through his publicist.
Is he dead?
I'm kind of wondering if he's dead. I think he might just be like really, really ill. But there's a guy that's accusing his housekeeper of like locking him up in a room and not letting him out, kind of thing. So yeah, that's why the podcast is kind of popular, because it's this ever twisting mystery. Because Richard Simmons still hasn't come out and said anything. It's all been through his publicist.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right then.
Deep stuff as we're getting started here on the Rollout Show. Now let's get back to sports. All right, so we're at the beginning of March, and every year at the beginning of March, you either have March Madness starting. But we're going to start off with talking about NFL free agency.
I would like to bring something up and remind you that this is not our first show in March. Thank you.
I didn't say it was the first show in March. I said beginning of March.
But you implied it.
I didn't imply
we're in the
it.
middle of March.
We're not in the middle of March.
In the middle. We're in the very end of the first third. We're basically in the second third.
We're at the 33% mark of March.
That makes us in the second third.
I quit.
Thank you for listening to the Rollout Show. Follow us at The Rollout Show. Again, that's at The Rollout Show.
We have a short show for you guys this week, as I'm just done. I'm just kidding.
All right, I guess I'll take over hosting duties from here.
All right, and now we're going to get to baseball, and Bradley, take over.
You know, the Red Sox, they're usually pretty good. They had Big Papi, but they don't anymore. So they have a bunch of guys whose names I don't know. They have Hanley Ramirez still, right? I have no idea. The Cubs won the World Series because they're pretty good, and Theo Epstein is a Hall of Fame general manager or executive or whatever you want to call him. Baseball. Wrigley Field, that's a nice place to play. Baseball. The Marlins, they're a joke, right? Wasn't the dude isn't the owner going to be like our ambassador to France or something weird like that? Baseball. That's all I got.
The Marlins are actually pretty good and almost made the playoffs last year, but tragedy struck, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, it was sad.
I wasn't going to bring all that up.
Man, I'm really getting heavy in this show.
Can we move on to a different topic? Why did I let you pick the topic when I'm the host?
You're not the host, I'm the host.
That's what you think.
I just let you think you're sometimes the host.
I appreciate that. Sometimes at night I like to pretend I'm the host and record by myself and pretend you give me responses.
Wow.
It's pretty sad.
That explains a lot. Wow. Do you pretend Lucy's me?
No. She's a lot smarter than you.
Is she, though?
Yeah. But speaking of March, maybe you should bring up our March Madness bracket group thing on ESPN.com.
Alright, guys. So, since we're in the sort of beginning to middle of March, we do have a bracket challenge up on ESPN.com. It is at the Rollout Show. And be sure to join our group, as we're going to have a competition to see who has the best bracket, which will probably be me, since I'm the best at things like that. And
it's a private group, and the password is the Rollout Show, all lowercase. We'll tweet that out. All lowercase, no spaces. The Rollout Show, and the group name is the Rollout Show, of course.
yes, so we wanted to make it pretty simple and standard for everybody. Just the name of the show, the Rollout Show. Be sure to join us and compete against us, and we can all team up and beat Bradley. Right?
I will defeat you all.
Yeah, okay.
By picking randomly. Because nobody watches regular season basketball unless it's a Duke UNC game.
Hey, I watched a little NC State when it was on in the restaurant I was eating in.
Were you watching it, or did you occasionally glance on it to avoid conversation?
I actually watched it quite a bit, because that was right after they fired Gottfried. So I was kind of curious to see how that dynamic was going to work out. And Dennis Smith Jr. is a really highly touted prospect. So he's right on the outside of the Lonzo Ball, Markelle Fultz range. So I was kind of looking at him a little bit. So,
Seems like a pretty good draft this year.
Oh, I'm super excited about this draft.
NBA-wise.
I am super excited. It's going to be one of the deepest in a long time. Even late round picks, you can get a quality talent out of there, and not just some guy who may come over from Europe in a few years, which is what it usually is at the end of the draft.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But anyway, back to where we were starting with NFL free agency.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure we got that in there.
Oh, no, it's good. And I like the basketball talk, so it's all good. So, Bradley, what was your favorite move over the past few days?
That's going to have to be Martellus Bennett going to the Packers.
Really?
I mean, favorite selfishly or interesting? Favorite selfishly, I mean, I root for the Packers. So I like considering that they haven't signed Eddie Lacy yet, I like the Martellus Bennett pickup. They lost, what's his face? You know who I'm talking about.
Jared Cook?
Yeah, that one. They lost.
Ooh.
They lost Jared Cook, and Martellus Bennett is basically the same player. He's a little slower, but he's a way better blocker and has better hands. They both have injury issues, so we'll see. I think it'll work out though. Martellus Bennett, bringing that Patriot championship pedigree, that matters absolutely none. But it's what some fancy people say. That the Patriots have, so yeah.
And see, going into NFL free agency, I didn't tell you this, but I was thinking that is the perfect spot for Martellus Bennett. I was looking at
it absolutely is.
Either there, the Texans, or even potentially the Buccaneers I thought of would be great places for Martellus Bennett.
Well, the Buccaneers have a tight end they believe in oh my gosh,
Cameron Brate. No,
yeah.
he's really, really good. It's just like that team. You add Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans, Cameron Brate, and you run 2 tight end sets and have Martellus Bennett. Oof, that's dirty.
Yeah, but I mean,
no, he's in a great spot there because the Packers needed to address something because they were losing a lot of guys. They're losing a lot of their offensive line. TJ Lang is probably gone. They lost their right tackle, I believe. I'm blanking on his name right now, which I apologize.
Beluga?
No. Treader, their center. My bad, Treader.
Mm.
But they re-signed Nick Perry, which, it's kind of...
That's fine, I guess.
Yeah,
it's whatever.
it's a Packers move. They usually re-sign their guys, but
And I'm hoping they get Lang. Lang would be a good re-sign.
he would be.
Um,
It's just the guard market is pretty crazy right now.
and losing Micah Hyde hurts
Oh,
for
it hurts a
sure.
lot. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Losing Micah
But
Hyde.
other than that, most of the key pieces are still there, and I'm not too worried about it. Sam Shields is gone, but they cut him. And yeah, I really am just hoping Eddie Lacy resigns, and then I'll be pleased. I would love to see them re-sign TJ Lang too, but I'm kind of doubting it because of how much money he can command.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of Eddie Lacy, I think he's going to the Vikings. I don't know if there's anybody who's actually talking about that, or if there's even any rumors on that front, but I think he'd be a perfect fit for the Vikings.
I agree. I think that'd be a good spot for him. It's a spot where he could go in and immediately be the starter and make an impact because the two guys they have there, McKinnon and Asiata, just weren't getting it done last year.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like they're really committed to Asiata because I think he's a restricted free agent or he's an unrestricted free agent. So they're still talking with him, but I mean, they've had those guys for years and they haven't broken through and have had numerous opportunities to. And it's just, I mean, Asiata is a good, goal line back. He's not an every down back. Eddie Lacy can be an every down back and is good in pass blocking. So,
The only thing about Eddie Lacy being an every down back is because he got hurt last year, we didn't really get to see the new and improved in shape Eddie Lacy. So I'm curious what his stamina level is going to be next year. 2 years ago, the fat Eddie Lacy year, um, he really just couldn't be out there for too long. There was a play in the playoffs where he broke free, was running down the field and was getting caught from behind from like D linemen and stuff. He looked like he was running a 5.5 40. He was too
hey,
slow.
that was a bad year for him, but I mean, if you look to the year before that, which is more normal Eddie Lacy, I mean, I think he'll be just fine. He's had plenty of time to
Well,
recover, and
I agree with you, but it's whether 2015 was the new normal. He looked better last year, but we didn't get a huge sample size. It's hard to know what the new normal is, especially when you get hurt and have to go through the rehab. Your weight can sometimes get away from you a little bit. Can he
yeah,
bring it down again? Because he worked so hard to lose all that weight before. Does he have the mental fortitude to do it again? Or is he just going to be fat Eddie Lacy and be what Rob Kelly is, which is fine, I guess.
Fat
You
Rob.
can be you can be on the field first and second down and run straight ahead and then go take a breather.
Hey,
It works.
hey, I like Rob Kelly. He helped me in fantasy football, man. Towards the end of the year,
Oh, I do
solid
too.
pickup.
But if you can in the NFL as a running back, your shelf life is so short. You want to be a third down back to command all the money you can.
No, I agree, and I believe in him, so I think he's going to be just fine.
I agree.
But
I if I sound overly negative, it's just because I'm
no, you're just
trying
being
to use
skeptical.
a different perspective. I really like Eddie Lacy. I think he's a top 6 or 7 back when healthy and in shape. And I think that's why I want the Packers to re-sign him so bad. I think mixing Eddie Lacy and Ty Montgomery would be a great backfield.
No, it would be a great backfield, but we'll see what the Packers have in store. And speaking of big free agent moves, yet again, Brandon Cooks to the Patriots.
That wasn't a free agent move, but I appreciate the segue nonetheless.
Well, I mean, it's around free agency. It was
But it
based
was a
around.
trade. It was a mega
I
trade.
know,
Oh my
like
gosh. What was it? It was like a first and second rounder for Brandon Cooks and a fourth.
it was
When did the Patriots trade away first round picks?
it was a first and a third, I believe.
Okay. Okay. First and
So
a third for Brandon Cooks and a fourth. I think that's what it was.
yes, and
Um,
that's a lot.
I mean, I like Brandon Cooks. I think he's a great receiver. But you're a team that basically has a white boy version of Brandon Cooks in oh my goodness, I'm having a
Julian
horrible time with
Edelman?
names today. No, they're deep threat.
Chris Hogan?
Hogan. Yeah. So you have a vertical threat already in Chris Hogan, who literally all he does when he's on the field is runs in a straight line as fast as he can, and sometimes he gets the ball thrown his way. And you have an aging quarterback who doesn't have the best deep ball anymore, and Brandon Cook's best weapon is his top end vertical route speed. That's where most of his damage came from with Drew Brees. I'm a little skeptical about this move, but it's Bill Belichick, and I will not disagree with anything he does because he's the best to ever do it. We'll see. I've criticized his moves before, like Chandler Jones and Jamie Collins, and it always works out for him. So I'll just see how this works out. For all we know, Brandon Cooks is going to have a 1,000-yard season next year.
Well, see, the other key to this component, which is what I've been hearing, is whether Malcolm Butler is a part of this deal, but in a separate deal because they couldn't trade him at the moment since he's a restricted free agent. If Malcolm Butler's a part of this, so like maybe the Patriots are getting like a pick back that they had already traded for Malcolm Butler or something, or another Saints pick, then I already think this is a win for the Saints at the moment because of all the holes the Saints have, because you trade from a huge position of strength. You still have Drew Brees, and they seem to love
you
Willie
already
Snead
have
and Michael Thomas.
You have a great receiving core, so giving one up is good. But from the Saints' perspective, I mean, that first round pick is the 32nd pick. Is what you're going to get talent-wise better than Brandon Cooks? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. They traded Brandon Cooks at the height of his value because Brandon Cooks is about to get expensive. He's playing for $1 million this year, but the year after that, it's about $8.5 million for his 5th-year option. And it's the Patriots can cut bait if it doesn't work out, but that's still a lot of money that they're going to have to pay him, especially if they sign him to an extension, because he's not going to take a discount. He's going to want to cash in.
I guess you have to give the Saints some credit for that. They're finally making a cap-friendly move. It's not something they've done very well recently.
Oh no, not at all.
That's good.
Yeah, it's really good, and then it's allowed them to sign Larry Warford and bolster up the O-line, and then now they're really focusing on defense. Like they brought in Nick Fairley on a fairly cheap deal. Wow.
I wonder if they're gonna trade Malcolm Butler for like the Saints' first round pick, and then they basically swapped first rounders and then traded a 4th and Brandon Cooks for a 3rd. And that makes it sound a lot better.
See, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do because the picks, it could be that they're trading like second rounders for like Butler or something, because I think they're going to try to mesh the two trades together. It's just per NFL rules, they couldn't really do it, which is the same way with the Jaguars and Dolphins trade, where they had to make 2 separate deals for Brandon Albert and Julius Thomas, but the trade was really Brandon Albert for Julius Thomas.
Well, then the question comes from the Patriots' perspective, or I guess from an outsider's perspective on the Patriots, why do they want to get rid of Malcolm Butler? Is it because they don't want to pay him, or is he really not that good?
And see, I've wondered that.
Every time, and it's the same thing as now the Patriots don't seem like they're willing to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, so we all assume he's great. But if they had been willing to trade him for like a second rounder, I don't know if I'd want him. Because I mean, if Bill Belichick's willing to get rid of him, is he someone I really want?
Well, I think that's just a part of the mind games that the Patriots play to and even drum up interest for guys, but I want to see more of Jimmy Garoppolo because he threw 91 passes and then got injured. I mean, even Brock had more than that. Now,
yeah, but Brock's sample was horrible.
No,
Jimmy
it was.
Garoppolo's sample was magnificent.
And speaking of Brock,
until Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, he was magnificent.
Oh yeah,
which is why he was getting so much love.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, you always have to take the Patriots quarterbacks, I guess outside of Brady, with a grain of salt because Matt Castle was fantastic too. The year
To be
Brady
fair,
tore his
even with
ACL.
Brady, it's not
Oh
like we've
yeah,
seen Brady outside of the system.
I was just trying to give Brady more credit, but because it seems wrong to criticize a guy who's won that many Super Bowls. But I mean,
Well,
I'm
it
of that
seems wrong to
opinion.
criticize. Seems wrong to criticize the goat. If I had to say who made who, I would say Belichick made Brady more than Brady made Belichick. But I think they're both the goat at their uh, job roles.
I
I think
think
Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time, and I think Belichick's the best head coach of all time. And it's just a situation where you have to leave it at that,
I think
in my opinion.
it was just a perfect situation that came. They worked so well together. I think that's what's really helped them out because
Yes.
otherwise they would have different issues. Because Belichick and Drew Bledsoe butted heads a little bit. You know, when Bledsoe was there, when before Brady took his job, when Bledsoe got injured, because it wasn't perfect. And then it's just they made that first run, and then it's just they've kept it going.
I'm I really, really hope Bill Belichick doesn't retire when Brady retires. I think he will, and I think if I was in his situation, I probably would. But I want to see what he can do without Brady. The only season he's had recently without Brady was the Matt Castle year where they went 11-5 and missed the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think it's for sure he's going to retire as soon as Brady because the only thing that can happen really is it hurts his legacy.
Well, it's a pride thing. So you have a lot of people that say, and Skip Bayless is one of them, that Bill Belichick isn't even that good of a head coach. He has Tom Brady, and Tom Brady has carried him through the years. So if you're Bill Belichick, you can have some kind of pride that, hey, I can do this without Brady. This was my system, and I can do it with a Jimmy Garoppolo or Jacoby Brissett, just like I did it with a Matt Castle and made him look good and got him a bunch of money. I can make this work without Tom Brady. It won't work as well because Tom Brady is the GOAT, but I can prove to everyone that I'm still a great head coach even without Tom Brady. Because if Tom Brady leaves, he doesn't have to keep winning the Super Bowl every other year. He just has to keep making the playoffs, keep having 10 and 11 win seasons. But if Brady leaves and he starts winning 8 or 9 games a year, then the grumbles will start. I guess it was Tom Brady all along, kind of thing.
See, I Bill Belichick doesn't strike me as a guy that cares what anybody thinks. So I think he's just going to be gone, and that's just that. He's going to ride off into the sunset with his legacy, unless he really does like the extra challenge. Because, and part of me thinks he does want the extra challenge since he isn't trading Garoppolo. Because if he wanted to really retire or whatever and just ride it out with Brady, then he would trade Garoppolo for whatever he could get and just build a super team.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, Bob Kraft and Josh McDaniels, these people are his friends. He wouldn't want to leave them with nothing whenever he decides to retire. I don't know why I chose Josh McDaniels. For some reason, I was
I
like,
feel like Matt Patricia is going to be more the guy that would take over than Josh
you
McDaniels.
think?
Yeah,
Okay, fair
I'm
enough.
of that opinion. I think it'd be more of Matt Patricia taking over.
I don't really have an opinion either way, so we'll go with Matt Patricia. His good buddy Matt Patricia. He wouldn't want to screw him over and say, "All right, win with Jacoby Brissett," even though we know he sucks.
Well, they love Jacoby Brissett. They adore Jacoby Brissett. They think he's going to be a starter in the league. Like they've been on record of saying that. It's just he needs
Then
some
why
work
wouldn't they trade Jimmy Garoppolo?
because I don't think they want to trade Jimmy Garoppolo right now.
They only have him for one more season, and then Jimmy Garoppolo's
I think
can
it's
be
more of
gone.
a long-term thing with Brissett, and that's why I think they're trying to drum up interest for Garoppolo is seeing what somebody's willing to give up. But
I think someone out there is willing to give up a first. I think we know that.
I think depending on who it
As
is,
many first round picks as the Browns have, you think they wouldn't give one up for Jimmy Garoppolo? Why
honestly,
acquire all
no.
these assets? It's like the Celtics. Why acquire all these
I
assets
don't
if you're
think
not going to spend
no, I
them?
don't think they would because the Browns already have enough to give up for Jimmy Garoppolo and it hasn't happened. And knowing their front office, they're not going to do something that's out
That's
of the
why I think Jimmy
ordinary.
Garoppolo's not for sale.
Well, because they're not going to sell off everything just to get one guy. Because, I mean, it'd just be like trying to
Well, it's not
jump.
selling off everything. You're giving up one pick. I mean, here's the
It's either,
argument.
no, they're asking for like, in talks, they're trying to get number one so they can get Miles Garrett, who's the best player in the draft. Like, if you're the Browns, you need to take Miles
Yeah,
Garrett.
I wouldn't
I'd rather
do
have
that. I'd give
Miles
up.
Garrett than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Here's the question though: if you're the Browns and you're not gonna take a quarterback at 1, then yeah, don't trade that pick. But if you can get Jimmy Garoppolo at 12, where you probably would take a quarterback, you might as well just spend it because Jimmy Garoppolo is better than any of the quarterbacks in this draft.
Well, that's what we think he is, but I mean, we really don't know. Are you really like Paul DePodesta doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that would just trade like a pick that valued that highly.
But why is it so valuable? You're gonna take either Jimmy Garoppolo, and you can just think of it as drafting him, throw him in the pool. You spend this,
And then you're gonna have to pay him.
You can get either. Well, that's fine. You're gonna have to pay your quarterback eventually anyway. It's not like they're hurting for cap space.
Well, they aren't right now, but it's the thing. Like, would you rather draft and develop your own guy? Because I mean, Paul DePodesta hasn't drafted a quarterback yet. You know, outside of Cody Kessler.
Okay.
I mean, but he was a third rounder. I mean, they just took a flyer on him. They thought he had something.
And he was surprisingly decent when he didn't have concussions.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, they've almost wrecked his entire career at this point because of everything that went on last season.
Which is another thing you need to be careful of when you draft a quarterback or get Jimmy Garoppolo. And maybe that's their logic. Well, maybe they're saying, all right, let's take defensive and O-line players, and we won't get our quarterback till we know we can protect them.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I think they're looking at the draft, or will make a little bit of a lesser move, because, I mean, they signed some people. Like O-linemen, they signed Treader, they got Zeitler, I believe is how you say his name, from Cincinnati. So their O-line is already one of the best in football just with those two moves, because you have Joe Thomas on the left, you have Zeitler playing guard, you have new center and Treader, and you're already pretty good on the right side with their right tackle.
How much did they pay?
They paid a lot. Like, they had the cap space. Well, that's what they targeted. They said, you're going to have to build through the O-line, and they had the cap space to do it, and you already have a guy like Joe Thomas who's revered throughout the league. So, I mean, if you're an O-lineman, wouldn't you want to play next to Joe Thomas? Like, I mean, that dude's a monster.
Oh, he's incredible.
Makes your job easier.
He hasn't missed a snap since he's been drafted.
Exactly, so.
Which is ridiculous.
I mean, you might as well, because, I mean, and then with Zeitler, you had, like, the Hugh Jackson connection, and also you just have to move a few hours north. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's really not bad for them. So,
and he's familiar with the division, familiar with Hugh Jackson.
Exactly.
And the offensive system. I think the Browns, if I were to place like a 50-1 bet on the Browns making the playoffs, I'd put a little money on that.
Oh, I totally would. I mean, I think Browns are going to be a surprise team.
I don't think they're going to make the playoff. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I guarantee you they're going to win more than one game next year.
I think they're at least 6 wins. It hurts them a little bit with the Terrell Pryor just leaving, which kind of took them off guard because they were willing to match any contract that Terrell Pryor got, and since he only signed with 1-8 with Washington. But I really think they're going to at least be 6-10, maybe 7-9 next season.
A lot of it depends on the rest of this offseason, because their defense needs help badly, and then they have no receivers. I mean, they drafted like 5 receivers last year, and only one is any good so far.
Well, Corey Coleman's really good, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only one.
And you have
they drafted 5.
And they just signed Kenny Britt to a relatively cheap deal, only $17 million in guarantees. And
Kenny Britt did have a pretty good year last year, so we'll see.
No, he had a pretty good year last year with like nobody throwing to him, so.
Well, he's going to have to do the same thing in Cleveland.
Hey, so he's used to it, so you can just step right in. How about that?
You think they're going to take a quarterback at 12?
If Deshaun Watson's there, they're in love with him, so yeah, they're going to take Deshaun Watson.
But they don't love him enough to take him at 1?
No, because Myles Garrett, I mean, he's the best player in this draft. And like you just said, you need help on defense, and specifically the defensive line. And if you have a transcendent talent like that at number 1, I mean, you take him. The only way...
Man, Myles Garrett lit up the combine. Oh my gosh.
He's the best player in this draft by far. I mean,
yeah,
it's ridiculous. That's 100%. Why he's going to Cleveland. The only way he's not going to Cleveland is if somebody really wants the number one overall pick and offers something ridiculous like the Rams did last year.
Yeah. Well, if somebody has an RG3 type of situation where they fall in love, maybe even it's with Myles Garrett, and they think it's worth giving up 2 firsts and a second to
Oh,
get Myles Garrett.
Paul
I
DePodesta
could
would
see
do that
someone
in a
doing that.
heartbeat. Paul DePodesta would do
Yep.
that in a heartbeat because that's what he did in baseball. Honestly, because his whole thing is getting the best player for the best value. So, and kind of finding the biases that exist in different ratings of players and exploiting that. And that's exactly what he'd do. That's why he's hoping somebody falls in love with a quarterback and is so afraid that the Browns are going to take that quarterback and just get a little value out of the number one pick and then still draft Myles Garrett.
What do you think the most interesting signing was? Interesting based on maybe the contract terms, maybe where they landed. What do you think is the most interesting?
I think probably it may be a little prisoner of the moment. One of the most interesting ones to me was probably AJ Boye coming back to Florida and playing with Jacksonville because that's going to be a dirty cornerback tandem with him and Jalen Ramsey.
Oh, they're gonna be. They have a great secondary there, but the rest of the team is trash.
It's not. I wouldn't say the rest of the team is trash, Bradley. That's a little.
Weston, every offseason, every single offseason, we say the exact same thing. We say, hey, look, the Jags, they're getting pretty talented. Oh, look, they could probably go 9-7 this year. I have them as a sleeper pick in the playoffs. And then they win 6 games, and we do the exact same thing every
Because
single
Gus Bradley
year.
was not a good head coach. That
No,
is
it's because
evident.
Blake Bortles is a trash quarterback.
He's not a trash quarterback.
Oh my god.
He's not
You
a
know,
trash quarterback. Okay?
He's trash.
He is
He's
not
bad.
trash. And honestly, look at how many teams have
Can
won.
we put a poll up? Can we put up a poll question?
Okay, we'll put up
I
a
want
poll
a poll
question.
question.
We will put up a
Is
poll
Blake
question.
Bortles trash?
Okay,
Because he is.
okay, we'll
He's
do that
horrible.
we'll do that after the show. I'll put up the poll question, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Otherwise it's going to be keyboard clicks galore right now, so. But anyway,
I think that's really interesting too. The fact that you're AJ Boye and you're he only did it for 1 year, so it's tough to know for sure, but we all presume him to be a top 5 corner in this league. You're going to go to Jacksonville. It's an interesting choice. I like it though. He's a great player from what we saw last year.
yeah,
And it's interesting that in this day and age, after seeing free agents go to Jacksonville and then fail miserably, that a high profile free agent would want to go to Jacksonville, but I don't know, he got paid, so
apparently Chicago was really, really in on him, and it seems like AJ Boye had his heart set on Jacksonville because the Bears apparently had offered him pretty similar to what Jacksonville offered, if not more, and had basically been told he's not interested. So I think a lot of it was really the team around him and the location. He played, college football at UCF, so I think he did kind of want to come back down to Florida.
to be fair, the Bears might be one of 5 or 6 situations right now that's worse than Jacksonville.
Well, I mean,
but I do like seeing him come home. I like that. I hope that had a part to play. I assume it did because he came to the Jaguars. Why would you want to play for the Jaguars? So I hope it turns out. I like the Jaguars roster for the most part. It's a up and coming team, but I feel like every offseason I say they're gonna win 9 games this year, and then they don't.
We'll see.
I'll probably say it before the season this year because they're loaded with talent. But I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. That's the thing though, and that's why. And that's another thing, like the Calais Campbell signing. I think he also wanted to come back down to Florida because he played at Florida State. That's why he chose, the Jaguars over Denver. And I think he just liked the situation down here. But that's why their general manager, kind of like David Griffin with the Cavs, deserves a ton of credit because the contracts are all front loaded, and even with AJ Boye. So if AJ Boye doesn't work out, it's basically a 2-year deal and then option years after. That's why that contract intrigues me And it's the same with Calais Campbell. All the guaranteed money is up front where he's still going to be productive. And if they both fall off a cliff, then okay, it's easy to cut bait, and then we still have cap space.
And that's an interesting dichotomy between NFL and other sports. Because the NFL contracts aren't guaranteed, I don't know why teams don't do this more. Why wouldn't you pay more and have the money trail off at the end other than paying, I don't know, $8 million this year, $9 million this year, $10 million the next year? Why wouldn't you front load that guaranteed money so that you can just cut them when you don't want them anymore?
See, that's
Whereas
how...
in baseball or basketball, it doesn't matter. You might as well do it however the player wants because you have to give it all to them anyway.
Exactly. And the only thing I can think of why people in the NFL would want it backloaded is if they think they can convince the player to take a pay cut.
And restructure, yeah.
That's the only way I can think. But, I mean, that really only works with quarterbacks when you think about it. You know, like the franchise
I don't know.
quarterback.
Sometimes you can strong arm a
The only other
defensive
guy...
end who's barely hanging on to his starting position to restructure with the threat basically saying, if you don't, we'll just bench you and cut you and you'll be gone.
The only other person I can think of is Dennis Pitta, but Dennis Pitta was coming off of 2 like injury-plagued years where he didn't even play. And then this year the Ravens are coming and asking him for another pay cut, and he's kind of just standing there like, no, I'd kind of rather not since I actually earned my money this year, so I kind of want to keep it. I mean...
I think restructuring happens relatively often. I think we just don't hear about it because it's usually with mediocre players.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but I mean, I would honestly want it to be able where you don't have so much just dead money and where you have more cap space. I mean, that's why Jacksonville can do this every season. Because of the way their contracts are structured, and they've gotten out of the bad contracts where it's like, hey, you know what? This didn't work. I mean, so let's trade Julius Thomas and get a good left tackle for him. Because the Dolphins needed the cap space, and he gets to go team up with Adam Gase again, where he had his best years of his career.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. That's some good analysis, right?
That is. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
The most interesting contract to me was by far Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon Jeffrey signed a 1-year contract. Why?
The Eagles. Like...
I mean, regardless of where it is, who signs a 1-year, I think it was $14 million, which is big money for a receiver. It's probably more than he would have gotten per year in a multi-year deal. But still, a 1-year deal is so rare for a star player. Because Alshon Jeffrey, he's not in the upper echelon of Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., AJ Green, Julio Jones. He's not in that tier, but he's right below it.
Yeah,
he's not
second
far
tier.
off.
And honestly, with his injury concerns and then the off the field stuff where he's been suspended, it's like what? Like what? I mean, you're signing for 1 year? I mean, it's... I don't even know where to go.
I haven't heard any explanation, and I haven't heard anyone else be interested by it either. A 1-year deal for a star player seems so crazy to me in any sport. Why wouldn't you want... I mean, because you can't even say he's betting on himself. They're giving him $14 million this year. They obviously think he's talented and would have given him a long-term deal. Somebody would have given him a long-term deal.
Yeah, the Vikings offered him a long-term deal with apparently a lot of guaranteed money, but there must have been something either he didn't want to play in Minnesota or...
I actually wouldn't have liked that fit. They have a good enough receiving core. They need to spend money elsewhere.
I kind of agree with that, but it must have been one of those situations where they were just in love with the player, so they wanted to get him, but I don't... It's weird to see somebody pass up the long-term deal. It must have been something where he just really wanted to go to Philly. But the only other wide receiver I can really think of that was to really sign a 1-year deal when they turned down a long-term deal was Jeremy Maclin when he decided to re-sign with the Eagles after he tore his knee. Or he signed the 1-year deal and rebuilt his value and then signed the long-term deal with the Chiefs, But
Jeremy Maclin maybe wasn't getting the long-term deals he was looking for, and that's when you would do this. You bet on yourself saying, okay, I'll play this 1 year so that next year, instead of getting offers for 3 years, 15 million, I'll get offers for 3 years, 20 million, something like that. But I find it really hard to believe that there wasn't at least one team out there offering him a really good long-term contract. Because when someone's coming off of a knee injury and people aren't sure if he's going to be okay, they're not going to offer him as much money.
Right.
So Jeremy Maclin re-signed with the Eagles, proved he was still really good and could play, and then he got his long-term deal. Alshon Jeffrey doesn't need to do that. Yeah, he has injury issues, but he's talented enough and a good enough player when he's in that it's very difficult for me to believe that the best deal on the table was this 1 year, $14 million offer.
And see, I think he was a little bit of a prisoner of the moment, and he should have waited a little bit because I think he would be a perfect fit in Washington had he waited, but they had the whole front office turmoil situation going on because him and Terrell Pryor would form a great tandem with Washington.
I would not go to Washington right now.
But if
that has quickly become one of the worst situations.
Well, it is, but if he's signing a 1-year deal, which is what Pryor did and what Cousins is on, I mean, you know what? You can team up together for 1 year, give it a go. And I mean, I'd rather play for Washington than the Eagles right now. I'd rather catch passes from Kirk Cousins than I would from, Carson Wentz. Unfortunately, right now, in 2 years from now, I'd probably pick Carson Wentz because he's going to be pretty great, I think. But sophomore year with Carson Wentz, I don't know.
I have to believe maybe he has friends on the Eagles. Maybe he's buddies with Jordan Matthews or something. I don't know. Terrell Pryor's another interesting one. He signed a 1-year deal. He's one that I bet wasn't getting the good long-term contracts because people are questioning whether he's really that good. So he's going to have to prove it again with a team other than the Browns, where he's the only option and he's getting 15 targets a game.
I don't know, because the Browns were all in on him, and then all of a sudden they just get the notification or whatever that, hey, he signed with Washington 1 year and $8 million when they basically had offered him what they offered to Kenny Britt. So they just...
I was really expecting him to stay. I wasn't expecting him to leave.
I was shocked when I saw that. I mean, I really was, because I thought he was the perfect fit in Cleveland. I mean,
and he played so well. He quickly became a fan favorite. Maybe him and Hugh Jackson didn't get along or something.
I don't know.
I really liked him in Cleveland. I thought he did a great job last year.
Because, I mean, they picked him up when nobody wanted him. It just...
Well, and at the start of the year, he was like the third string receiver. But once everyone got hurt and it was him,
he took off.
He did a great job. He was a beast. A fantasy beast. I gotta admit, I didn't actually watch him play live a lot. I watched a bunch of highlights, and I watched his fantasy scores. He put up points. I don't know if it was a Russell Westbrook inefficiency situation. I don't know how efficient he was, but he had the volume and he got the production.
He got the production. I mean, he wasn't the most efficient wide receiver. That's for sure, because he'd get targeted 15 times and come away with like 6 catches some games, but
the question about that is how many times was it an incompletion because either he was covered or he dropped it, and how many times was it a terrible throw and he couldn't get to it?
I know he didn't work well with RG3, but I mean, you had a really small sample size.
And RG3's gone now.
RG3's gone now. Yeah, exactly. But I know because I mean, there was one game they started Charlie Whitehurst. I mean, it was a revolving door at quarterback. And I mean, one game even, he was getting some snaps at quarterback. I mean, let's be real here.
Didn't they start, including Terrell Pryor, didn't they start 6 quarterbacks last year, or was it 5?
I think it was 6.
That's crazy.
I mean, let's
count
them. A rough year.
We got Josh McCown, RG3,
Cody
Kessler, Charlie Whitehurst, Terrell Pryor. And Hogan, the dude
from Stanford. Yeah, they started him as well.
Yep.
That's 6 quarterbacks.
Yep, so 6. That's ridiculous. Oh my gosh. That's like that year Maryland lost all 3 of its scholarship quarterbacks and had to start
The
using their
linebacker.
kicker or someone.
It
Yeah,
was their mid
that was crazy.
linebacker who had
Oh
played
my gosh,
quarterback in high school or something. Yeah, it was.
that's crazy.
Oof. Life comes at you fast, man.
Apparently.
Oh goodness.
We got any other good signings? Any other highlights?
I have a bad signing.
Let's go for it.
What the heck are the Los Angeles Rams doing? Guaranteeing Robert Woods that much money.
I don't know.
They're going to have two of the highest paid wide receivers in football next season in Tavon Austin and Robert Woods. Do they have any...
Both of which aren't very good.
Both of which have
Tavon
underachieved
Austin,
in their entire careers.
And to be fair to Tavon Austin, I think that's more of a utilization thing. I think he's got all the talent in the world.
Oh, I agree.
Robert Woods isn't very good. He's decent.
I mean, are you
Robert Woods is a number 3 receiver.
Yeah, are you
He's not even a number 2.
Well, that was an article I saw. Somebody was saying, like, what is the deal with the people who play opposite of Sammy Watkins? Because Marquise Goodwin got guaranteed 2 years and $8 million in San Francisco, which I don't really mind that signing when you compare it to what Robert Woods got, which is insane. Yeah. Robert Woods is, I mean, he's a third receiver. He only played last year because he got pressed into duty. And
I mean, he played well. I give him some credit. He played well. What's the contract? I haven't seen this one.
I don't want to say the wrong term, so I'm looking it up as we speak to make sure I get it.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, the Rams, I mean, they don't do much good. So this isn't a real surprise to me.
They really don't.
I really hope they trade or cut or just don't use Todd Gurley for the next few years so he can get out.
You want him done?
I want Todd Gurley on the Packers. I want everybody on the Packers.
You want Andrew Luck to be Aaron Rodgers' backup just in case.
And then some trick plays he comes onto the field as a wide receiver.
Wide receiver? That boy's a fullback. Let's be honest. That man's a fullback. Oh my god.
He's a slow wide receiver.
Dude, he's not slow. He's just big.
Yeah, he's not slow at all. He actually runs really well.
He's a freak, man. By the way, 5-39 for Robert Woods.
Oh my god.
Yeah, now you see what I'm saying.
5-39?
Now aren't you?
How much guaranteed? Like 20?
At least. It was most of the contract was guaranteed. Like they gave him a large guarantee. So
that's horrible.
That is convincing me that the Rams really do not have any idea of what they're doing.
Man.
Like Robert Woods? Like, you're telling me Alshon Jeffrey wouldn't have signed for that?
I mean, he might not have.
Well, might not have, but at least a little bit more. I mean, would you rather have Robert Woods or Alshon Jeffrey?
Considering Alshon Jeffrey signed this 1 year, I bet he's looking for, like, 12 plus a
like,
year.
mega money?
He's looking for that Antonio Brown, AJ Green money.
I guess so. I mean, Antonio Brown, AJ Green money, but
like 12 to 13 million a year. I bet it's what he was looking for, and he was probably getting offered like 8 to 9, which is approximately what Robert Woods is going to make.
It's just,
Robert Woods is going to make $8 million a year. $8 million. You can draft a better wide receiver in the second round. I pay him $2 million.
To give the Rams front office some credit, they're pretty poor at drafting wide receivers. So I mean, I
don't think that's giving them credit at all.
Okay, it's giving them shade and credit at the same time.
You're giving them credit for knowing their weaknesses?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's fair. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to keep beating a dead horse, do you? I mean, they clearly can't evaluate wide receivers well, and when they do get a talented wide receiver, they either let him walk or don't utilize him properly, so...
Or overpay him and don't utilize him properly.
Exactly. Like Tavon Austin, who's clearly the third best wide receiver in the National Football League, right?
No. He's probably like the 20th best.
It's bad. And it says here in this report I'm reading, it's only $15 million guaranteed, which is still way too much money for Robert Woods. Like 5 years is way too long. $39 million, like
It's $8 million a year. That's too much.
Yeah,
I don't care what the total or what the guaranteed is. That's $8 million a year. That's too much. Robert Woods is worth like 4 to 5.
and I thought
You have
Kenny
to earn that
Stills.
type of contract.
I thought Kenny Stills was overpaid, but at least he got 9 touchdowns last season. And I mean, he's making $8 million a year on a shorter deal, and he's younger than Robert Woods. And at least he's got blazing speed.
He's more talent. Kenny Stills has always had the talent. Or Kenny Stills. Oh, God. Not Kenny Stills. Kenny Britt.
No, Kenny Stills. I'm talking about Kenny Stills.
Oh.
He got a 4-year contract at $8 million a year from the Dolphins. He re-signed.
They gave him $8 million a year?
Yeah, but at least...
No, I don't like that. No.
Well, I don't really like it either, but when you compare it to... He's 2 years younger than Robert Woods. The contract is a year less with less guaranteed money. And he's at least got speed. So...
Just because it's slightly less bad than the Robert Woods deal doesn't make it good.
Oh, no, I don't think it's a great deal.
That's a horrible...
It's Kenny not good Stills for the Dolphins because it eats up some of their cap.
They need to focus on Devontae Parker and Landry. Kenny Stills can be replaced. Kenny Stills, all he is a deep threat. You can find a fast dude with decent hands to run straight once every 3 plays.
Exactly.
You can find that. You need to make sure your great talents, guys who are more than just fast. Kenny Stills is just fast. He's got a decent release, and he runs straight really fast. Devontae Parker has incredible hands, and Landry is an incredible route runner. You pay them.
Exactly.
Even though apparently Adam Gase doesn't like Devontae Parker at all.
That is... Well, I bet there's a lot of people who'd be lining up to take Devontae Parker off his hands, so...
Well, from what I remember hearing, it's all... He's never on time to meetings. He's bad at showing up on time. He doesn't put a ton of work in. And I hope that changes because Devontae Parker this year, some of the catches he made they were DeAndre Hopkins like.
Oh, all the talent is there, but you know what happens as soon as you get rid of a guy like that or talk bad about him? I mean, the switch turns on.
I hope so. That's what happened with Ajayi. I mean, there's another guy that wouldn't put in the effort, didn't like showing up to meetings, didn't seem to have a love for football. Got mad that he lost the starting job to Arian Foster. All of a sudden, he gets to start, and he's into it now. Now he's a top 10 running back.
I guess I will give Adam Gase credit because he waited for his opportunity, for the right opportunity, because he had a lot of head coaching openings and interviews that he really turned down to stay in Denver and then move on to Chicago. But I will give him the benefit of the doubt because it seems like he knows what he's doing to get the most out of his guys, but it
does. So far he's done a great job. That team got better at basically every position, and I think they're going to continue to do so. I think if Ryan Tannehill can keep this upward trajectory. You know what?
Trajectory.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Well, I was combining projection and trajectory, and it turned into projectory.
You want to make sure you have your trajectory right.
I have a 4-year college degree.
Clearly not in English.
If he can keep this upward trajectory, Miami can be a good team for the next 5 to 7 years. They've got a ton of young, really good talent, but I don't believe in Ryan Tannehill. So I don't think they will be. We'll see. I think he is worse than mediocre. I think he has attitude problems, which you can get away with as a skill position. You can't as a quarterback. And I don't think he's very good.
I don't really agree with you on the attitude problems. I think that's a little... He's kind of clumped in a category with Jay Cutler for me. He kind of gives off the same kind of vibe.
Right.
Whereas, I think...
It's the exact same complaint I have about Jay Cutler.
About Jay Cutler. He just gives that off. I don't know if it's actually true.
Well, it's not even give it off. Remember the story that came out 2 years ago about him getting angry at the scout team players because they kept picking him off. Dude, just be better.
Dude,
don't get mad.
That was 2 years ago, man. That was a completely different Ryan Tannehill in a different situation. Everybody hated Miami 2 years ago. That was rough. Your boy Philbin was not a good hire.
that is that's you seeing him behind the scenes of what his personality is. Sure, he can put on a facade, but unless he truly, truly changes, that's his
He
personality. That's
he
he's
played
whiny.
he played like a different player last year though. You have to give him credit. He's got a really good coach now. Philbin, they just didn't mesh well together. They made some bad moves earlier on, but
I think a different player is a bit of an overstatement.
he played differently
He
last year. You have to give him credit for that because he had some
What do you mean he
adversity.
played differently?
He played.
He had a decent. He had a mediocre year.
He
All
did.
right, I'm pulling up the numbers.
Yeah, but he made strides. You could see it in his game. They won more games, and I think with the supporting cast around him,
He
he's
won
going to
more
be
games
better.
because the team around him was better.
Exactly, and he has a better coach because
Okay, here you go. 2015, 61% completion, 4,200 yards, 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 88. Instead of reading all the numbers, I'll just do passer rating.
okay,
2016, 93, 2015, 88, 2014, 92, 2013, 81, 2012, 76. So he's always been mediocre. And last year was no different. Last year was barely his statistical best, just in terms of passer rating. Barely.
oh, barely his
I think
okay.
I think most of the change we saw with the team last year was because the team was better. Ajayi was looking good. The defense made huge
Well,
strides.
not at the beginning of the year though. That's the thing I'm talking about. Like the beginning of the year, they were pretty terrible, and Tannehill wasn't that good. And then they took off when everybody started buying into what Adam Gase was saying, and you could see that team just mesh together, and then they started playing good football. That's what I'm like talking
Right.
about. It's a different culture in Miami now. It's a different situation. It seems like most of the players are buying in, and
That's fine, but you
yeah.
still need the quarterback to win the Super Bowl.
Well,
And that's my point. Ryan Tannehill, in my opinion, is not good enough to get you a Super Bowl.
Well, and that's the question. Like, what quarterback? There's not that many quarterbacks out there that are just instantly that good to carry you to a Super Bowl. But if you have
No, I'm
the
not talking
like,
about carry. To win a Super Bowl, unless you have an elite level defense, i.e., the Broncos, and then the Seahawks, Russell Wilson's early years, you have to have the quarterback play. I mean, Ryan Tannehill or Kirk Cousins right now? Who you taking?
oh, Kirk Cousins. But I know how you feel about Kirk Cousins. So, but
I
I'm
would take Kirk
huge.
Cousins, and Kirk
Oh
Cousins
yeah.
is mediocre.
Well, that's like Kirk Cousins is better than mediocre. You do not give him any of the
He's
credit.
Kirk Cousins is slightly better than average. I'll
He
give you that.
almost threw for 5,000 yards last season.
He is slightly better than average.
He had the sixth best quarterback rating in the league for the past two seasons.
He didn't play well when it mattered, dude. He didn't play well when it mattered. And he hasn't consistently. He's been
Okay,
good when there's no pressure.
He
He's been
started
bad
for
when there's
2
pressure.
years.
That's why I'm saying he's slightly better than mediocre. I would take
Dude,
him over Ryan Tannehill.
I would take him.
I'm with you.
Okay, all right. If you're the Browns, this was a topic I had
Yeah.
written down. So let's get into it. If you're the Browns,
Let's do it.
who you trading for? Kirk Cousins or Jimmy Garoppolo? Because it's 100% Kirk Cousins for me. There's no doubt in my mind. If I'm having to give up a first round pick, I'm giving it up for Kirk Cousins and I'm re-signing him. Like I'm
A first round pick? No.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No.
First round
And
pick
the
for
difference,
Garoppolo
in my
or
opinion,
Cousins?
is
Oh, I'm going
the
Cousins.
difference, in my opinion, is Kirk Cousins is a known. Kirk Cousins is Andy Dalton.
No, he's not.
Kirk Cousins is Joe Flacco.
No, he's not.
That's what are you talking about?
He has
Just
better
because
numbers.
he puts up more numbers?
This is the argument you had against Tannehill that he doesn't put up the numbers. And then this is the argument you're using against Kirk Cousins.
No. Incorrect, sir. My argument against Ryan Tannehill is that he sucks. My argument against Kirk Cousins is that he sucks. The numbers just
does
help
not.
in whichever direction I send it. Kirk Cousins has... You're right. That's an overstatement. He doesn't suck. He's pretty good. I agree with you. I would take Jimmy Garoppolo in that situation because I think, in my opinion, you can have a different opinion. It's okay. This isn't first take. We don't have to yell at each other. I guess old first take.
Old first take. The good days.
I think the potential, maybe not even the potential, it's the unknown with Jimmy Garoppolo. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo in 2 games. If you extrapolate that out to a healthy, long career, he is borderline Hall of Fame talented.
Bradley, that's 2 games. And they were against They were against trash teams.
One was the Cardinals.
They were terrible this year.
They weren't at the beginning. We didn't know that.
Yeah, we didn't know that. Yeah, okay. They were bad this year, Bradley.
Kirk Cousins, he puts up numbers. He's pretty decent. He is what Andy Dalton or Joe Flacco would be if they threw it 40 times a game.
No.
He just did. He's a 60 to 65% completion rating and a 2.5 or so touchdown to interception ratio guy. That's what he is. He's good. Jimmy Garoppolo, it's the unknown. It's it's because Kirk Cousins is basically at his peak. No, I know, but
Bradley, he's only 28. Garoppolo is
he's only 28.
He's going into his prime. As a quarterback, that's going into his prime. Even ask Aaron Rodgers that. He said that.
Yes, he's going into his prime, but he's taking a step towards it. We're almost to the top of the mountaintop for Kirk Cousins. We have not gotten there with Jimmy Garoppolo. We're just starting the ascent.
That's what makes the Garoppolo trade so much riskier.
Oh yeah.
He could easily turn into Brock.
If you're telling me I can get Kirk Cousins for a 2nd rounder, I'll take Kirk Cousins. But if I'm going to spend the first
package, you're going to take Garoppolo over Kirk Cousins.
Maybe not.
Okay, that's my discussion. Because they're asking for a first for Garoppolo.
Here's the messed up logic that I'm coming to.
Okay.
And I may be completely wrong in this. You may have got me.
Okay.
If you're telling me it'll cost me a 3rd rounder, and I can have either Kirk Cousins or Jimmy Garoppolo, I'll take Kirk Cousins. He's the proven commodity, and I can put talent around him. If you're telling me it'll cost a 2nd rounder, I would do the same thing, but I would hesitate a tad. But if you're making me spend a 1st rounder, that means overall the supporting cast is going to be worse. So Kirk Cousins is not a guy that I think can carry you to a Super Bowl. Why not gamble on the guy who maybe could? Does that make sense? Even if you don't agree with my logic, do you see what I'm saying?
I kind of see what you're saying, but when you factor in the contract, because so you trade for Garoppolo, and he's a restricted...
Well, you're going to have to pay both of them.
Exactly, which makes me want to go with Kirk Cousins. Because, I don't know. If you have to give up the 12th pick, I'd rather... Kirk Cousins is better than what you're going to get at 12.
This year, yeah, but I also think Jimmy Garoppolo is. That's why I would argue for trading the 12th pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think we can't come to an agreement on this because we have differing opinions on Kirk Cousins.
Oh yeah, because I think of Kirk Cousins, he may not be in the elite tier yet, but he's right below it if you look at his numbers and how he plays.
I think he is in the Andy Dalton, Joe Flacco tier.
No. I
think... Okay, all right. Kirk Cousins or Phillip Rivers?
Kirk Cousins.
You're out of your mind.
Dude, no.
How are you going to take Kirk Cousins over Phillip Rivers?
So what...
Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer! What are you talking about?
How old is Phillip Rivers?
That's the only argument.
No, it's not. Because your argument against Kirk Cousins is... Well, he doesn't play big in the big moments. Does Phillip Rivers play big in the big moments?
No.
He's always 40 yards short. He's 40 yards short every game, Bradley.
I agree. So on that point, you can give them a draw. So if you're doing like a Kirk Cousins versus Phillip Rivers thing, I think the one draw is they both seem to struggle in the spotlight. The one positive to Kirk Cousins is that he's younger. Every
a lot younger.
Other positive goes to Phillip Rivers.
I disagree with you there.
What do you accuracy? Phillip Rivers. Arm strength. Phillip Rivers. Leadership, Phillip Rivers.
No.
Better quarterback,
No.
Phillip Rivers. Hall of Famer. Phillip
Okay,
Rivers.
we're not talking Hall of Famer.
No. Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer. Kirk Cousins is not.
He's played 2 years, Bradley. You would have said the same thing about Aaron Rodgers after his second year. Aaron Rodgers or Phillip Rivers.
Because when Aaron Rodgers got 2 years under his belt, he was a top 5 quarterback. As soon as he started.
No.
He was! What are you talking about?
No, this would be the same argument. They're so similar. Kirk Cousins is a little, like, his stats are a little worse than Aaron Rodgers, but, like, it's similar in argument.
Oh, and the stats don't even work anymore because it's a different league now.
Well, exactly.
It's more of an air raid league now.
Oh, okay, but, like, 4,900 yards?
It's very good, but he wouldn't have had that if they were playing a decade ago. That's why I'm saying it's impossible to compare the start of Kirk Cousins, especially because Kirk Cousins, his start was so much more tumultuous and turmoiled, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah, because he took over mid-season when he wasn't expecting to start.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and I think that's a point towards Kirk Cousins. I think he's done a decent job given the weird, awkward situations he was put through with the whole RG3 situation.
And what he's in now. I mean, 2 years in a row on the franchise tag where your team is basically saying, like, well, we like you, or whatever, and then you're like, hey, I kind of like some certainty here because this is football, my career can end any minute, and they're just like, no.
Here's what it's like, okay? I'm going to give you an analogy. You are in a relationship. Let's just say you're in a relationship and you live together.
Okay.
Okay? You're both on the lease. Both your names are on the lease. And Kirk Cousins goes up to Dan Gilbert, they're the ones in a relationship living together, and says, I love you. And Dan Gilbert says...
Dan Snyder.
Gilbert's the...
Dan Gilbert is the Cavs owner.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Hey, they can be in a relationship if they want, because, Kirk Cousins is going to Cleveland, so, whatever.
Dan Snyder.
So they'll be neighbors.
My bad. Snyder. Yeah. Kirk Cousins goes to Dan Snyder and says, I love you. And Dan Snyder says, I like you, but I don't love you. And then some time passes, and Kirk Cousins goes up to Dan Snyder and says, I love you. And Dan Snyder says, I like you, but I don't love you. And then Kirk Cousins says, well, fine, I'm leaving you. Take my name off the lease. And Dan Snyder says, no, you're staying right here, buddy. That's like the situation they're in right now. Because Kirk Cousins asked for a trade. Did you like that? I liked it.
That was a good analogy.
Kirk Cousins asked for a trade and was told no, even though he knows the team doesn't want him long term. And I don't know why. If I was the Redskins, it's not... Even though I've been hating on Kirk Cousins and I don't think he's incredible, he's good enough to win long term. You sign that man. Don't let him leave. Because even as mediocre as I think he is, his talent level is hard to come by.
Oh yeah, and they are so fortunate that, because usually a move like the RG3 trade, where, I mean, he was good his first year, but then the injuries and whatever else happened, where RG3 was not the guy that you gave up all that capital for. You need to be thanking your lucky stars that Kirk Cousins developed into the guy that he was. And is, because otherwise your franchise should be set back like 10 years. That's usually what happens.
Mike Shanahan.
Yeah, no, you really do need to thank Mike Shanahan. And Kyle's coming for him. Like, I strongly believe that.
Oh,
after a year?
I think that's probably why Kirk Cousins asked for a trade, because he knows of a particular suitor out there who could use his services, and his name might rhyme with Weil Manahan.
Or rhyme with Flu Haxon.
Or Flu Haxon. Yeah, that would work too.
Thanks, came up with that on the fly.
Very creative.
Thanks, man.
Hey, there's one more thing I want to talk about before we wrap up.
Okay.
And that is the genius of Moneyball.
Oh, the genius.
And Brock Osweiler.
Oh, I love that. And
the Browns have $100 million of empty money next year that they either spend or they lose. It doesn't really matter. And they basically bought Brock Osweiler's contract for a 4th round pick, right? Isn't that what they got?
Yeah, they traded a 4th round pick for Osweiler and a 2nd and a 4th.
That's what it is. Okay. So they basically traded money. They basically, what they did is they wrote a check to the Texans and said, "We'll buy that 2nd round pick from you." And the Texans said, "Gladly, because we want Tony Romo."
Exactly, and honestly, that's why I told you Houston could find a way to get out of that contract. Like you were saying, it's pretty much impossible, but you see it in other sports all the time. So I'm really glad that DePodesta pulled the trigger because
Well, and the reason I assumed it was impossible was the NFL's salary cap. It seems like you can pay so many fewer guys than other sports that I didn't think anyone was going to be willing to take that contract on. But the Browns having all that space, I mean, and the fact that they're confusing Hall of Fame executives like Bill Polian, who just thinks it's a horrible move. What is up with Bill Polian?
I don't know, because I used to agree with about everything he said. And
I still agree with almost everything he says, but he just got angry and was so confused by this. It was,
it's like
and I
he
think
doesn't
it was
watch other
him,
sports or something. I think he's just
it was
so
him
angry.
not being able to understand why an owner would spend money they don't have to. Is sort of what it boiled down to me, because that's the only, and you got to give credit. Who's the Browns owner right now?
Jimmy Haslam.
It's not Jimmy Haslam. You got to give him a little credit for saying, "All right, I'll write you this check for a 2nd round pick." Is essentially what happened. I'm sure that move had to be cleared by him, and I give him a little bit of credit for being willing to spend the money.
And that is a big key for him, because in the past he hasn't seemed patient to actually go through a full rebuild, and 2, to actually be willing to shake things up like that.
I really think as long as he doesn't get impatient and they let this thing ride,
it's gonna work.
In 3 to 4 years, the Browns are back.
They're
back.
Oh, exactly. And
you can see it already. They're probably gonna triple to quintuple their win total from last year.
Oh, exactly. And the moves that they made are just so out of the ordinary, and DePodesta knows how to exploit that. Because it's like the old bias is like, oh, nobody's going to take on Brock Osweiler, and then I don't know who started those negotiations, whether it was Houston or Cleveland, but I have to believe it was probably Cleveland. And then,
well, especially when you see Bill Polian be so confused, you have to imagine that's how most of the executives were feeling.
Oh yeah,
that's why they didn't even think of this. Well, and now if you're the Browns, not only did you basically buy a 2nd round pick, you have a quarterback that if you want to draft a Deshaun Watson, you have a bridge. He's not great, but it's someone you can put out on the field and not have to start Deshaun Watson. It's a guy with a little bit of experience who can start right away. You aren't winning next year anyway, so keep him for a year, start him, and then cut bait when you're done paying him the guaranteed money next year. It's brilliant.
It's brilliant.
It's a brilliant move.
And right now, I know they're trying to deal him again, like flip him to somebody else, or they are actually thinking of cutting him. It just depends on, I guess, however everything else shakes out. But
I think if I was them, I wouldn't cut them. If I could flip them and say, hey, if you'll give us a 4th rounder, we'll pay half of his salary or something like that.
Exactly.
I wouldn't cut him. You might as well keep him. He's a body. Yeah. Y'all went through 6 quarterbacks last year. You might as well keep the body. Oh, yeah,
exactly. Like, for real. Have Brock get banged up a little back there. That's fine.
Even though the O-line's better this year, you have... I mean, what other quarterbacks do you have? 2 quarterbacks, Hogan and I keep forgetting Cody Kessler, who had injury issues last year. You might as well keep the body.
No, exactly.
And the experience. Maybe he got some Peyton Manning osmosis he can pass on to the other guys.
Man, just speaking of this whole thing, Elway is so thankful that Houston was desperate. Because if not,
because he would be stuck with Osweiler.
Because they offered him 16, so 16 a year. Oof, yeah, that'd be the end of the Broncos right there.
I don't think it was as much guaranteed though.
Probably
but still,
not. But still,
that's 16
yeah.
a year.
Yeah, and it's just brilliant. And I know that people are gonna think, oh, like the old football guys, oh, we can pull one over on Cleveland now if we keep this going. We'll just dump them a contract. And
that's fine.
DePodesta gonna be
will
like,
take the picks.
All right, second rounder, dump the contract. Here we go.
We have the that's the thing. You have the cap space. Either you use it or you lose it. You might as well spend it on draft picks. It's brilliant.
Oh, exactly. And they want the quantity plus the quality of picks, so they don't want, just like 10 7th rounders, which they'd probably take anyway. But if they can,
and then flip them for 4 5th rounders
or something, exactly. I mean, it's because you can't hit on every guy you draft. So you might as well, you know what? You have 4 second rounders over the next couple of years. You get 4 shots in the second round, where there's a lot of talent there. So other than a lot of teams, I mean, they can gamble on guys. I mean,
I just love seeing Moneyball in the NFL. It feels
great.
like how we play Madden.
Oh,
Because when we play Madden, we love to make trades. We like to trade
Madden 2K
first rounder for 2 seconds, and
exactly.
It feels like that. It feels like he's finally bringing something to the NFL that should have been there a long time ago. And the whole Moneyball concept, I love it.
And it's funny because he gave a quote shortly after he got hired by the Browns, where he spent years in baseball as, oh, that's just that nerd over there, and not getting like a lot of credit. And then he moves from baseball to football, and then he's become the baseball guy, where he's just like, so I guess it took me 15 years to finally become the baseball guy, but I had to leave baseball to do it.
I think a lot of that was the movie too. The Moneyball movie.
That a lot of that is, and it's just funny.
Well, it was the Moneyball movie. Most people would be like, oh, that's a nice story. And then he comes into the news as the Moneyball guy. So there's an instant association. And now he's more popular and famous. And I'm sure Clevelanders love him right now.
Oh, no, they do. Especially the Clevelanders that are like us or something that, get all the transactions and what's happening and kind of see the comparison to what the Sixers were doing under Sam Hinkie before Sam Hinkie got, forced out of town, by, I guess, other owners or whatever you might say.
Well, and the difference is, Sam Hinkie got forced out by the commissioner, Adam Silver.
Yeah.
Because, to my understanding, the difference is there's a rule in the NBA that basically you can't salary dump for picks. In the NFL, that rule doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Because nobody's ever done it before. It didn't need to exist.
And in the NBA, it was one of those like unwritten written rule things. Because people do that all the time. It's just the Sixers did it more than anybody else. Which, I mean, what did you expect them to do? I mean, that's the quickest way to get better.
Even though it seems to have pretty much failed now.
Well, I don't know if it would have failed. I mean, we don't know what Sam Hinkie would have done this season. No,
but I mean, even though Sam Hinkie left, they had the fruits of his labor, and Joel Embiid can't stay healthy.
Well, yeah, they did shut him down.
The player that they used this whole plan, they centered this whole plan around, can't stay healthy.
Well, yeah, he couldn't this season, but it didn't help out that Ben Simmons was also injured. But I would have to assume that, I mean, for what the Sixers did, because even though how bad they were, they never got the first pick in the draft until this past season. So Sam Hinkie never picked first in the draft. For the players that they got,
he drafted well.
Oh, yeah, he
did draft well. I'll give him that.
He drafted the players most people thought were going number 1 overall. I mean,
other than maybe Okafor. And
Okafor had gotten talk about going number 1 overall.
Yeah,
it was, wasn't it Okafor or Towns?
Everyone thought he was going to go 2. Yep, it was Okafor versus Towns, and then Russell snuck in there.
Yeah, exactly.
At 2. All right. We are way over time.
Yeah, we are.
Should take us out.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to episode 4 of the Rollout Show. We got a little heated, and that's good sometimes because, Bradley needs to know when he's wrong. So,
Kirk
speaking,
Cousins sucks.
no, he doesn't. Speaking of that, you can go and hang out with Dan Snyder then. Speaking of that, we can join our brackets, our bracket challenge. It's at the Rollout Show, ESPN Tournament
Yep.
Challenge, and the password is the Rollout Show.
Just go to ESPN.com, click on the fantasy tab, go to the bracket tournament challenge. You can search for our group. Our group is called The Rollout Show, and it'll prompt you for a password. The password is The Rollout Show, no spaces, all lower caps. That's lowercase TheRolloutShow.
Good job. And
Thanks.
Daniel Snyder, Kirk Cousins, be sure to join our tournament group. We'd love to have you in there. You guys can, butt heads in there, and that'd be great. Be very entertaining. And Team Kirk Cousins, all the way. Captain Kirk, my boy. And we'll see you all next week. Please follow us for more hard-hitting sports talk and random comedic relief at The Rollout Show on Twitter. And be sure to download the podcast and look us up on YouTube and all that good stuff. This has been episode 4 of The Rollout Show.
Wow. It gets worse every week.
It does. It really does. That's what makes it great.